There are countless stories about how we ought to live our lives. We're expected to be ambitious, to find everlasting love, and to take good care of our health. The particularly dominant social narratives can serve to make our lives easier by providing guidelines for behaviour, and they might sometimes make us happier too. But they are at their heart stories, and ones that may not have originated with present-day people in mind. As such, many of these stories end up creating a kind of social dissonance, whereby, perversely, they cause more harm than good. They become what I will refer to as narrative traps, which together form the myth of the perfect life. The Working Class Hero. Since this is a book about stories, let's start with an experience of mine. It's about a working class kid who becomes a university professor and who is expected to change his behaviour in accordance with harmful narratives about how academics ought to behave. A couple of years ago, I took part in an interesting panel discussion on emotion versus reason at the How the Light Gets In festival in Hay-on-Wye. Walking across the field to get some food, I was approached by a man in his 50s. Our interaction started well, with him saying how much he liked my first book, Happiness by Design. Then he asked pointedly, "But why do you have to play the working class hero?" I requested clarification. He said, "You do it in your book, and look at you, you're doing it now." I had no idea what he meant by that, although I was singing Chim Chimney Chim Chiroo and dressed as a chimney sweep. Ordinarily, I would embrace being a hero of any kind, but in this context, I was made to feel like an arsehole. The man proceeded to lecture me on how, when you reach a certain level, you have to modify your behaviour. He told me that I shouldn't swear. Apparently, I said the word fuck twice in an hour-long panel discussion. This crime was made all the more heinous since the panel contained two middle-aged women. You know, women, those fragile creatures who might have a nervous breakdown upon hearing an expletive used in a discussion as a means of emphasis. So why shouldn't I swear? Perhaps because it is a sign of poor vocabulary and or low intelligence, and yet no such correlations have ever been found. There is evidence, however, to suggest that students pay more attention to a teacher who swears, and are then encouraged to express their own opinions more freely. Swearing is only ever harmful when it is used in an aggressive or abusive way, and not when used as a means of conveying excitement and emphasis, which is only ever how I use it in the workplace. In these circumstances, the evidence shows that it does more good than harm, so the idea that swearing is bad is a fucking stupid one. The man was insistent that in my role as a professor at the London School of Economics and Political Science, I ought to be setting a better example to those who looked up to me. And by better, he meant consistent with the prevailing impression of a university professor. Take a quick look at the website of any department you like at the LSE or any other leading university, and the pictures of the faculty/staff will neatly illustrate what I'm talking about. He was appealing to a social narrative that placed the burden on me to act in a particular way based upon my middle-class profession. The LSE treats me very well, but the general expectation to act in accordance with the narrow confines of academic stereotypes still causes me some misery from time to time. I especially struggle with how seriously academics take themselves. More importantly, stereotypes of exactly this kind deter working-class kids from going to university by making them feel that they would have to suppress who they really are in order to fit in. Great strides have been made in the UK and the US to overcome a bias against accepting students from working-class backgrounds. The LSE has increased its proportional intake of working-class students by more than any other elite university in England. This is commendable. But those cajoling working-class kids into higher education also need to consider that many of those kids really don't want to attend elite universities and mix with other kids who are different to them. Many working-class kids, especially boys, are reluctant to go to university because it involves hanging out with loads of middle-class folk who think and act very differently, and being taught by middle-class teachers who cannot relate to their alternative worldviews. And even if they do survive this new environment, they then risk feeling alienated from a working-class background where they'd always felt at ease. In my experience, the well-intentioned middle-class folk trying to get working-class children into higher education assume those kids have middle-class aspirations. But many don't. I never have. OK, so I have a middle-class occupation and my kids are undoubtedly middle-class. But many of my friends have never been near a university, and I retain some of my working-class values and behaviours. I weight train with bodybuilders. Seeing a blazer or a pair of loafers at a bodybuilding competition is as rare as rocking horse shit. I am proud of these differences, yet I appreciate that my life would be easier if I fitted in with expectations placed on academics, or alternatively on bodybuilders.